Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the photo of the week on the Daily Critique. This week's photo of the week was submitted by Abby, who is a beginning photographer from California. Abby shot this with a Canon 40D, 55 to 250 IS zoom lens at 55 millimeters. So after the crop factor conversion, this is a short telephoto shot somewhere around 90 millimeters at ISO 200 and f13. Abby exposed the file for a 200th of a second. Abby says he took a trip to somewhere near Santa Barbara, California, and on the way started to see these beautiful sort of empty grasslands with solitary trees and solitary clouds. And Abby came up with the idea of friends in solitude and then took this picture. So I want to come back to two things so far. I want to come back to the idea of titling. I also want to look at the technical information in just a minute. And Abby had some questions under questions and comments, and I want to look at those at the end of the review of this beautiful image. Right away when I look at this image, I mean, the main thing that I think about in terms of visual design is the real powerful use of negative space in this image. Positive space shapes are our subjects, and negative space is the area around our positive space shapes or subjects that helps to separate them from the rest of the image and make them come forward. And in this image, you know, you really just have three main subjects. You have the cloud and the tree on a real powerful diagonal, and then the open land down here, the fence and the grass and the line of the mountains. This is all kind of one positive space shape. And so obviously most of the image is the negative space of the sky. One of the things from a visual design standpoint that I love the way how the image has been managed is I just love this gradient from light sky to darker sky at the top. There's such a powerful sense of movement up in the image to the cloud, and it's nice having the dark negative space above the cloud to kind of keep us from flying out of the image at the top of the image. The other thing that I love about the negative space in this shot is that these subjects really help to at one time move me through all the negative space. There's such a powerful connection here. There are also subjects that to me have a powerful effect on people psychologically, just at the level of becoming more contemplative or slowing down. So from an archetypal standpoint, the solitary tree in the field, the solitary cloud in the sky warrant or could work with a lot of negative space. To me, so much of the time negative space is a place in the image where people can go to be contemplative, and it also just suggests this openness that allows for psychologically for us to have an emotional response to an image. So there are a lot of things to me that really make all this negative space pay off. It might not be as interesting of an image if the solitary subject it doesn't have as much psychological impact, and let's just say that there is no cloud. So you just have a lot of negative space basically pushing down on one subject. And I think you know, another thing that's very powerful here is not only are these subjects on a diagonal, they're on the diagonal that's the easiest diagonal for us to move on in the image. We want to start here and we want to end up here. That's very powerful. You know, in addition to the solitary tree and the solitary cloud being very powerful, to me there are other archetypes that are suggested here that really lend themselves to an image that has a lot of negative space where we can be contemplative. The shape of the cloud itself starts to represent an archetype that's very powerful. To me this looks a lot like a wing right when I look at it, or I can see the shape of other things that are possibly animated or alive in this shape. The other thing is you have the archetype of light to dark, or you could think about beginning to end. You have the connection between clouds and trees. You also have the connection of just the repetition of these two shapes. The other thing that I love in this image is that the other idea, in a very subtle way, if I come down to the bottom left, brings me over to the tree in a way that is sort of congruent with how we want to move. We like starting higher and moving down to a lower space, and you have a sense of that in the mountains. You also have this beautiful, simple, sort of ghosted repetition of the fence. That's another archetype. Very, very powerful once the viewer would get to it. And that obviously would take on more weight and a bigger print. To me, this is just a stunning image. It's a great example of simplicity working really well. It's a great example of negative space working really well. It's also a great example of two simple but very powerful visual design concepts, working the major diagonals, and specifically working the diagonals that have the most visual weight because of how we move through the frame, and also repetition, and also archetypes. Man, they're important. Here's the other things that I wanted to mention. Well, let me do the technical thing after I say what I'm about to say. Titling your work, it's just, to me, is so powerful. Shooting to a concept is powerful. It's not the way to work, the only way to work, but it is a way to work. So coming up with concepts first and then going out and shooting to them, letting a concept frame your shooting session, and becoming more visionary in your work. There's a whole school that just says, let's just take documentary pictures or whatever. At this point in my life, I couldn't be any more bored with that. And the truth is, a lot of what happens documentary is connected to news and things like that, and most of us have already figured out that yesterday's news and looking at that has turned into a sick form of entertainment on this planet that is not making the world any better. And we also know full on, good and well now, that looking at old pictures of horrible things don't decrease the odds those things will happen again in the future. They increase the odds dramatically that they'll happen again. So why not understand how valuable framing is, and in our own creative process, why not get conceptual? Why not frame our shooting sessions with our vision for the best that we can be instead of just going out and reacting? I think it's a real powerful thing to consider. On a real basic technical note, I might not stop down this far to shoot this shot. This is just out there. You could focus to infinity. I would encourage everybody, when you hear this, if you have the time in your day, to do a Google search for your lens and see if you can find a diffraction chart study of your lens, so that you understand where your lens is the sharpest, and that you're not stopping down to f-stops that are getting you in the range of really horrible diffraction on a lens. I don't know what it is on this lens, but I know that on a lot of the lenses that I own, that f13 overall is not very sharp at all. So just a thought on an image like this that may look really beautiful in a huge print. And I just want to wrap up with some questions that Abby had here. Essentially, as a whole series of questions just saying, I wonder if this image is too simple, and I wonder if it works. So just wanted to say this at the end. My hat is off to Abby and all the people that contribute like this to TME. It takes a lot of courage to share your work. We just did a weekend of it in Atlanta, and we had a critique session, and there were probably 10 people that had never put their picture up before. And we talked about the fear surrounding that, and there were people that said they literally felt physically sick when their image came up, and we started to do the critique. And so it sure is nice to just recognize the elephant in the room. We all have a lot of fear around sharing our work, because we don't want the love that we've put into these things to be rejected, and most of the time that's what this fear is about. It's just the fear of love being rejected. One of my favorite quotes of all time, I don't know who said it, is that great love isn't ever rejected, because if we do something from a place of really loving it, then we get the benefit of enjoying it to begin with. If we can keep coming back to that and just put our stuff out there that we love, and then let mystery or whatever take over from there, then we'll keep coming back to being in a space where doing the things that bring us joy. What else is there? At the end of the day, there's not anything else. There's nothing else of value. We've kidded ourselves. There's no other value in life. There's only being in joy, and then taking that to the point of sharing it with somebody else so that they can experience joy. That's it. At the end of your life, I guarantee you, I've been there at the end thinking that I was dying. Those are the only things that you're concerned with, whether you were true to yourself and whether you helped other people be true to themselves. And so my hat is really off to Abby. He's submitted this image. He's questioning the image, but he has the courage to share it. And it's an image that's had a big impact on me, and I love it, and it's beautiful. I'd be curious to see what other people think of it. In the beginning, as a beginning photographer, when you're starting off, it's just like anything that we start off, we're unsure, and the only way to get to a point where you're more sure is to have the courage to share. And so I just wanted to mention that. Again, thank you to Abby. Thank you to everybody that contributes to the Mindful Eye. It takes all of us working together to make it work, and hope all of you have a good weekend. Hope to see you again real soon on the Mindful Eye.